close. They've had awesome. They've been good most of my life.
They're the Kansas City. If Mahomes goes to the Chiefs, if Mahomes goes to the Vikings, not the Chiefs, because Kansas City has always had good quarterbacks. They won Hank Stram, Len Dawson. But Kansas City always had good coaches, good quarterbacks. They drafted well. A lot of great players. I mean, Ray Lewis always told me he hated playing the Chiefs with Willie Rofe, Tony Gonzalez. Ray's like, I hated playing the Chiefs. Their O-line was unbelievable. If Mahomes goes to the Vikings, not the Chiefs, you'd be like, yeah, well, they were always well run. They just have never landed. They thought it was Dante Culpepper. They thought it was Kirk Cousins. Fran Tarkenton was good back in the 70s running around. One of the first 5'11", 6-foot quarterbacks out of Georgia. But they just have never consistently had, they got Favre for a couple years and they were a play or two away from the Super Bowl. So I tend to look at Minnesota respectfully. Like the Twins can't compete in Major League Baseball. The T-Wolves weren't always well run. The Vikings have been well run since Bud Grant. Always.
Yeah, I mean, that's a knock right on the Bears. Ownership's cheap. That's a fact. The Packers, I mean, they haven't had one, but they've had a unique infrastructure. And the Lions, up until Dan and Brad Holmes got there, were the running joke of the NFL. And the Vikings, just even look back, like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins never going to the Hall of Fame. He's going to the Hall of Fame of the bank accounts for doing what he pulled off. But they signed Kirk Cousins, and they were just good. And they beat Drew Brees in a playoff game. A couple years ago, they hosted a playoff game, which they lost the Giants, but they had a really good record. They're just well run. And I think, we were watching some of the highlights. It's hard in these preseason games. Shador played a lot, right? He gets 23 attempts. Most of these guys get a series, 7. and then they're out. So he's like, they went 3 of 7. It's hard. JJ definitely has some physical attributes. And, I've been, I guess, on the negative side. And I started thinking, listen, maybe he doesn't even have to be that great. Their team's so good. If he is just the 20th best quarterback, has some games where he's the 10th, has a couple clunkers, but they could win a couple games where he has clunkers.
Listen, his comp to me is Brock Purdy, is that he inherits Kyle Shanahan. He gets Christian McCaffrey, a Trent Williams, George Kittle, and all these receivers. And so do you think Brock Purdy does that if he goes to tone-deaf offensive Pittsburgh? No, he doesn't do that. But as he's learning the game behind Garoppolo gets hurt. You're like, oh, Brock's got 3 years, 4 years of college starts. He was ready to play. JJ's issue is Brock Purdy played at Iowa State. He trailed a lot. He got hit a lot. He didn't play with great players. J.J. McCarthy is like a trust fund kid. He never got punished. He never got pushed. He never trailed. Life was never hard. So, but I believe, like Brock, when he inherits the job after Garoppolo's injury, just don't run the Mercedes into the tree in the driveway. The truth is, Minnesota's roster is like Denver. It's way better than people. We pay attention to Philadelphia or Baltimore. I'm telling you right now, Minnesota, left tackle, running backs, receiving crew, edge rushers, Minnesota's stacked.
You could make the argument that the best two rosters in the NFL are the Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. And then the AFC ones, the top guy, the Ravens or the Chiefs. I think most people would consider the Ravens top to bottom typically year in, year out the best roster. That's why they're kind of disappointing sometimes when they let down. Even last year when the Bills beat them, you're like, I don't think the Bills are as good as the Ravens. How did they just win?
They're not.
But
they're not.
That's the thing with Minnesota. They have had, I'd even go back to a decade ago with Mike Zimmer. I mean, they had excellent players with, Spielman was the GM. They always have impact Pro Bowl guys.
Yes.
And it just comes down, Cousins wasn't quite good enough. Right? Now, the difference is they got Cousins a little older. He already had some scar tissue. He had some true limitations. It had to be in the pocket. He couldn't ad-lib. His best throw of the day, when did he play? Yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon, was that rolling to his left. He had physical attributes that I think part of the reason they got off Cousins, obviously he had the Achilles, but even when he was healthy, there were true limitations. Like with Goff, they can't move. Unless a coach wants... Purdy bails Kyle out sometimes just because he's got some athleticism, right? And that's going to be an element that can help him out, especially early on. You can get him layups, moving around. They got the best wide receiver in the league. I think Addison got suspended, but he was throwing to him
for
a couple
3
times
games.
Yesterday. He is. When he's on, that's pretty damn good, those two guys. So they got it. They have added offensive linemen. They can really run the ball. To me, that's what Kevin O'Connell needs to kind of lean on early. That's the easiest way to take a little pressure off the kid early. run the ball a little bit. It just helped him out. But he does like the pass. I mean, that's, he got confident in Sam Darnold early. He's like, let it rip, because I've said it forever. His comp is not Kyle Shanahan, it's Sean McVay and Andy Reid. He wants to bomb it 50 times a game. Kyle would rather win. Kyle would have no problem going 13-5 and leading the league in rushing and his quarterback averaging 19 attempts a game. That is not how McVay, definitely Andy Reid, and I would put Kevin O'Connell in that bucket, which I don't blame him. We all got our different philosophies, but you got to be careful with a young quarterback, calling passes nonstop early in games on first down, because if it goes wrong, he got a little bit of a pass, I thought, last year. I'm not saying Sam Darnold was perfect, and obviously he played bad, especially in the Detroit game. But in the playoff game, he could have settled down the game a little bit and ran the ball, and he just refused to call runs. And I think but that's back to McDaniel. You can't hide who you are as a coach. No different than, you approach a radio show, a podcast certain ways. Like, everyone has their own styles, and you kind of stay true to that, especially the older and more success you have. So that to me, I'm going to be fascinated watching that early on, like how he treats this. Like, is he cool starting the season 4-1, but only having him average, let's say, 20 pass attempts a game, and really, like, we're going to try to lead the league in rushing in September? Because that's how he should be talking, just even if he's bullish on the player in practice, just to ease his start into the year. I mean, last year with Caleb, it was like throwing nonstop. It's like, this is not going to work, guys. This is unfair to the guy.
So I thought it was interesting. Apparently, Jim Harbaugh loved Brian Thomas, the receiver that went to Jacksonville, who was great as a rookie, but he drafted Joe Alt. And they had a great left tackle in Rashawn Slater, and Alt was the best tackle in the draft. So Harbaugh drafts Joe Alt. He was inconsistent, but I was told inside the building that they thought Alt was going to be a Pro Bowl level right tackle this year. Now Slater now gets hurt, season-ending injury, heartbreaking for the kid. Great player. My guess is they move Alt over to left, and then they've got multiple guys that can play right. But I thought I thought once again, this is where Harbaugh is really smart. Everybody wanted him to take a receiver. Remember, they'd lost Keenan Allen, they'd lost Mike Williams. Everybody in the world thought it was a wide receiver. The Bears took Rome Odunze, right? The Bears could have used an offensive lineman. Let's be honest. The Bears didn't need Rome Odunze. They could have used Joe Alt last year in the offensive line. Harbaugh gets Joe Alt, and a year later, it's prescient. I mean, you look at it and you're like, oh, shit. If they didn't draft Joe Alt, where would they be today? Ladd McConkey's excellent. Keenan Allen comes back. He'll be your classic, 48 catches, 60 catches, third down guy. But it goes back to Harbaugh's the opposite of Mike McDaniel. Everywhere he goes. I remember Stanford. I can remember his second year at Stanford. People are like, they're not any good, but they're the most physical team in the Pac-10. They went into USC in the Coliseum as a 40-point dog and won. And they were beating on USC. Like, they were physical. And I think it goes, when we bang on a Mike McDaniel, it's like Harbaugh is always true to who he is. So even though the Rashawn Slater injury is brutal, the Joe Alt draft pick, to some degree, saves them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's why they always say you can't draft for need. You got to draft the best player available, and a left tackle should be more valuable than a wide receiver. I mean, it was the right pick.
Well, always. If he's good, always. Yeah.
And they nailed that. I do think they'll big picture. Like, everyone's saying that he's going to take Malik Neighbors. Like, guys, have you not followed this guy's career? But a huge reason I was bullish on him last year, even if I don't think they're going to be as good as some teams, like I don't put them on the top tier in the AFC, I would bet on them being good again. This is a pretty big blow because their team is, roster-wise, is not as sexy as the other guys they're chasing. And a huge point of, kind of where they separate is they have, the best tackle duo in the league. And now they add Becton, like they were going to be so physical. And we know Jim will have no problem rushing it literally every play. And he could win, go 17-0 and win every game 9-7, and he'd be the happiest guy in America. But I think anytime that you lose a guy in the domino effect, because okay, you move him to left tackle, that means your right tackle gets worse. Do you try to move Becton to right tackle? That means your guard gets worse. Like it's a domino effect. Even though it's the best situation given that they drafted Joe Alt, that if you're going to lose a star left tackle, you have a replacement. But it has a huge blow. And even they signed Najee Harris, like they're going to pound two running backs, and he messed up his eye, clearly can't do anything. I mean, it's not good. I mean, I'm not very, I wouldn't be bullish on him starting the season early. I mean, he's not even close to practicing. So I think the Chargers are just in a weird spot. Now, they got Jim Harbaugh. Their floor is so high. They could have a season from hell and win 8 games. But I think that was not just a devastating injury. My dad, again, he was a 50-year-old guy, tore his patella tendon when he was like 50 years old, and it was never the same. That is not an ACL. That is not a broken arm or a broken leg. That is the devastating knee injury. So that's scary big picture too, especially because cap wise they just invested. I mean, I think I'm not trying to be doomsdayer here, but you almost have to say this might never be the same with this individual player. So now, luckily, Jim Harbaugh is might as well be an offensive line guy, so he'll be able to figure something out. But you usually don't replace, even if you can replace the left tackle, then the right tackle, the drop off at that position, you could argue from a high end tackle to the backup is almost like a quarterback. It's a precipitous drop off. The backup is typically in a different stratosphere than that guy.
Well, it goes back to George Young, the late great general manager of the New York Giants, and Paul Brown and George Young. There are certain people that just, Ted Thompson in Green Bay had a theory on drafting, and he used to call it the planet theory. George Young did, which was there are only so many 6'6", 325-pound men annually born in America eventually to become that have good feet and are really, really have long arms. Like I've always said after quarterback, left tackle I would take a great left tackle over Micah Parsons. I wouldn't, outside of a Lawrence Taylor's Myles Garrett.
Not hesitation, yeah.
Not even hesitation, because the man upstairs, I'm not overly religious, but the man upstairs makes a lot of 6'4", 270-pound guys who could run fast and rush the passer. There's a surplus. Almost every team's got somebody who's really good at the edge. There's 6 good left tackles in the game. And if the 30 best of all time, I think 27 were drafted in the first round. They don't show up in you can get Brock Purdy in the 7th and Kurt Warner undrafted. Antonio Gates. And not a lot of great left tackles all time that went in even the 4th round. So to lose Rashawn Slater, who I think was the 11th, 12th, 13th pick, it's a devastating blow.
I also think, if I wanted to argue the other side, part of the reason that Jim Harbaugh is worth so much and his value is so high is because no one in their right mind could get in front of a team and give a speech like, we're going to be okay. But that's what you have to do in his role, especially when did he get hurt? August 6th? I mean, we got a long way to go here. We're a month out from week 1. And I think he's good enough because, let's face it, he's a little psychotic. He's just kind of crazy in a weird way, an optimist. He's a very optimistic human being that he could get up there and still breathe light in like Mike McDaniel. Do I think I mean, it's shown when Tua goes down, they just implode because whatever he's saying, no one believes them. If you told me Herbert missed a month, I'd be like, I bet Jim could go 2-2 because he can just instill some confidence that no one has. And that's where the Chargers finally opening the checkbook for a high-end coach. It's valuable for this. So this is a year that a bad coach could just implode and you go 6-11. But would it shock anyone if the Chargers are just like the grittiest 9-8 team in the league because of Jim? That's, when it's like it shouldn't be this way. Their offensive line, maybe they have to rotate some tackles, whoever's filling in for all spot, and it's like they just kind of figure it out and they just kind of tough their way there. They win a couple games like 15-13. I mean, they're going to do that even when they're really good one day. But this is where Jim's value comes in moments like this.
Skull Nation, what's up? It's Victor here from Report Vikings, and man, we've got something to talk about today. The Tennessee Titans just claimed linebacker Brian Asamoah off waivers. Yeah, the same Brian Asamoah we drafted in the 3rd round back in 2022. And just like that, he's gone. Let's be real, this move says a lot about that 2022 draft class. We took 10 players that year, 10, and now only Ty Chandler and Yalen Naylor are still on the roster. That's it. That's brutal. Kwesi and the front office need to answer for that one at some point. Now, as for Asamoah, he never really found his footing here in Minnesota. 46 games played, 0 starts. Only 188 snaps on defense across 3 seasons. And yeah, he played a lot on special teams, over 800 snaps there. But this is a guy we picked in the 3rd round. You expect more. The writing was kinda on the wall though, right? He only played 36 snaps on defense in 2023, then just 33 last year. That's basically nothing. You combine that with him getting into it during practice, reportedly throwing a punch at Will Fries earlier this month, and yeah, that might have been the final straw. He did get on the field for our first preseason game, minus 23 defensive snaps and 6 on special teams, but 3 days later, boom, waived. The Titans jumped on him quick. They were first in the waiver claim order, and honestly, they need the help at linebacker. Cody Barton is their only real starter, and the rest of that group is made up of unproven guys like Cedric Gray, Otis Reese, IV, and James Williams Sr. So maybe a change of scenery does Asamoah some good. There's still some raw athleticism there, and he's only 25. But let's not pretend we lost a future All-Pro here. The potential was there, it just never translated on the field for us. Still, this just adds to the disappointment of that 2022 draft. Third-round pick, gone. Lewis Sinney, first-rounder, basically hasn't seen the field. Andrew Booth Jr., struggling with injuries. We needed that class to be foundational, and it's looking like one of the weakest we've had in recent years. What do y'all think? Was cutting Asamoah the right call? Should we have given him one more shot in camp? Or are you ready to move on just like the team was? Drop your thoughts in the comments. You know I'm always reading and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with another Vikings fan. We've got a long season ahead and we're breaking everything down here on Report Vikings. Skol, as always. I'm Victor, and I'll catch you in the next one.